What happened when you decided not to be the bigger person? I was staring at the cover of Design Weekly when my coffee mug slipped from my hands and shattered against my kitchen floor. There she was, Melissa Chen, my former best friend and maid of honor, smiling that perfectly practiced smile next to a headline that made my blood freeze. Rising star. How one designer's wedding collection revolutionized modern romance aesthetics. The wedding collection. My wedding collection. The same delicate botanical line drawings, the same hand-lettered font I'd spent 3 months perfecting, the same sage green and blush color palette I'd agonized over for my own invitations 2 years ago. Even the fucking paper texture looked identical. I grabbed my laptop with shaking hands and pulled up the digital magazine. The feature was 12 pages long. 12 pages of Melissa explaining her creative process and original inspiration for designs I created in my cramped studio apartment, working until 3 a.m. because my day job left me exhausted, but I loved the work too much to stop. The botanical elements came to me during a meditation retreat in Sedona, Melissa was quoted as saying. I wanted to capture that organic, ethereal feeling of love blooming naturally. Sedona. She'd never been to fucking Sedona. The botanical elements came from the pressed flowers in my grandmother's Bible, the same Bible I'd cried over while sketching those designs after Grandma Rose passed away 3 weeks before my wedding. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Sarah, saw the magazine. Crazy how similar Mel stuff looks to yours, lol. Great minds think alike, I guess. Woman shrugging. Great minds think alike. Right. I pulled up my design files, the ones timestamped August 15th, 2022, 6 months before I'd sent Melissa the inspiration mood board for my wedding invitations. I'd been so excited to share my work with her, so proud to have my best friend see this deeply personal project. The metadata didn't lie, creation date August 15th, 22, last modified August 23rd, 22. Then I opened Melissa's portfolio website. According to her project timeline, she developed the botanical collection in March 2023, exactly 1 month after my wedding, where 150 guests had seen and complimented the invitations I designed. This wasn't the first time either. It was just the first time she'd been bold enough to take something this personal, this documented, this mine. There was the logo concept I'd shown her for a freelance client in 2021, the same geometric sunburst that became the centerpiece of her rebrand 6 months later. The color palette I developed for my friend's baby shower that somehow became Melissa's signature, spring collection. The hand-drawn typography I posted in our group chat that appeared in her client work the following week, always with subtle changes, always just different enough that calling it out seemed petty. And every time I'd mentioned the similarities to someone, Sarah, my mom, our mutual friends, I got the same response. Are you sure? Maybe it's just a coincidence. You should be flattered. Don't be so paranoid, Em. Just focus on your own work. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person. I've been the bigger person for 3 years while Melissa built a 6-figure design business on the foundation of my ideas. I've been the bigger person while she booked magazine features and spoke at conferences about creativity I'd never gotten credit for. I'd been the bigger person while she moved into a downtown loft and hired 2 employees with money earned from my stolen concepts. The bigger person was tired. The bigger person was done. I closed the magazine and opened a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Documentation and began uploading every screenshot, every file, every piece of evidence I'd been too nice to use. Not anymore. The documentation folder grew quickly. 3 years of being the bigger person meant I kept everything, every screenshot, every email, every timestamped file. I told myself I was being paranoid, but apparently paranoia and preparation looked exactly the same. I started with the wedding invitations since those were the most egregious. I had everything, the original Photoshop files with edit history, photos of my grandmother's pressed flowers that inspired the botanical elements, even the receipt from the specialty paper company in Portland where I'd ordered samples. Melissa's Sedona meditation retreat story was about to meet some very inconvenient timestamps. But as I dug deeper, the scope of her theft became nauseating. The Moonrise Coffee rebrand that launched her career in 2022? I found my original sketches in a notebook from January 2022, photos I'd sent to our group chat asking for feedback. Melissa had been enthusiastic. OMG, these are gorgeous. The moon phases are such a unique touch. The project that won her the Young Designer Award had my handwriting in the margins. The signature style that got her featured in Creative Quarterly? Every element traced back to concepts I'd shared with her over late-night phone calls and photo dumps of my work in progress. She'd been my sounding board, my cheerleader, the friend who always wanted to see what I was working on. I thought she was interested because she cared. Turns out she was taking notes. My phone rang. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. Hey, I've been thinking about that magazine thing, she said without preamble. Are you okay? You seemed weird when I texted earlier. Define weird. I don't know, you left me on read. That's not like you. Sarah paused. Em, you're not actually upset about the design thing, are you? I mean, inspiration comes from everywhere. Maybe you guys just... Sarah. My voice was sharper than I intended. Can I ask you something? Do you remember my wedding invitations? Of course. They were beautiful. Very you. Why? I pulled up Melissa's portfolio on my laptop. I'm looking at Melissa's website right now. At her award-winning botanical collection. Tell me what you see. Silence. Then, oh. Yeah. Oh. But. I mean, maybe she was inspired by yours? Inspiration isn't. These aren't inspired by mine, Sarah. These are mine. Same drawings, same fonts, same everything. She changed the text and called it original work. More silence. I could practically hear my sister's discomfort through the phone. Sarah hated conflict, always had. She was the family peacemaker, the one who smoothed over arguments and suggested we all just get along. Okay, but Em, what are you going to do about it? I mean, what can you do? She's already published, and it's not like you can prove. Actually, I can prove it. I clicked through my evidence folder. I have the original files. All of them. With timestamps, edit history, source materials. I have photos of my grandmother's flowers that inspired the botanicals. I had the email where I sent her my mood board 6 months before she claimed she created this collection. Jesus. Sarah's voice got smaller. That's really fucked up, Em. But maybe you should talk to her first? Before you do anything drastic? Maybe there's an explanation. An explanation. Right. Maybe Melissa had been sleek designing. Maybe it was all a big misunderstanding. Maybe my lying eyes were the problem. I tried talking to her about the smaller stuff before, I said. Remember the logo thing? The color palette? Every time I brought something up, she made me feel crazy for even thinking it. But this is different. This is big. This could ruin her business if Sarah caught herself. I mean, if there was some kind of public thing. If I what? If I told the truth? If I stopped protecting someone who'd been systematically stealing from me for years? The careful way Sarah phrased it told me everything I needed to know about what came next. Even my own sister was already worried about poor Melissa's reputation. Well, she should be. After Sarah hung up, claiming she had to help Jake with dinner but really wanting to escape the uncomfortable conversation, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by ceramic shards and the weight of 3 years' worth of evidence. The documentation folder had grown to 847 files. Each one was a small betrayal that had seemed manageable on its own. Together, they painted a picture of systematic theft that made my chest tight with rage. I was about to close my laptop when a notification popped up. LinkedIn. Melissa Chen is celebrating a career milestone. Against my better judgment, I clicked. The post had been uploaded 2 hours ago, a photo of Melissa holding the Design Weekly magazine, surrounded by champagne glasses and congratulatory flowers in her sleek downtown studio. The caption made my vision blur. Astra's dreams really do come true. Clinking glass is so grateful to Design Weekly for featuring my botanical wedding collection, a project that came from the deepest part of my creative soul. To everyone who supported my journey from nobody to cover story, thank you. This small town girl is just getting started. Hashtag design life, hashtag wedding design, hashtag botanical art, hashtag dreams come true, asterisk. Small town girl. We were from the same fucking town. We'd grown up 3 streets apart. The comments were already pouring in. Dozens of congratulations from mutual friends, design colleagues, even my former clients who didn't know the truth. Heart emojis and fire emojis and you deserve this. But it was the comment from my college roommate Jessica that made something snap inside me. So amazing. I always knew you were destined for greatness. Remember when Em used to do those little drawings in the dorm? You two were always sharing ideas, guess it all worked out. 2 hearts. Sharing ideas. Right. I clicked on Melissa's profile. Her follower count had jumped to 47,000, up from 31,000 just last month. The magazine feature was generating real buzz. I scrolled through her recent posts, watching her carefully curated rise to design stardom. Every milestone built on work that originated in my sketchbooks, my late-night creative sessions, my personal experiences she'd somehow made her own. The Moonrise Coffee rebrand, 12,000 likes. Grateful for the creative process that led me here. The Spring Color Palette collection, 8,500 likes. Sometimes inspiration strikes like lightning. My wedding invitation design, 23,000 likes. When meditation meets creativity, magic happens. Each post had hundreds of comments from potential clients. I opened her business inquiry form and saw the pricing, $8,000 for wedding suite design. $15,000 for complete brand development. Services that commanded premium rates because of her innovative aesthetic and signature style. My signature style. My innovative aesthetic. I pulled up my own Instagram, 2,400 followers, mostly friends and family. My last design post had gotten 43 likes. The algorithm wasn't kind to accounts that posted sporadically, and I'd been so busy with my day job that I barely maintained my creative social media presence. While I'd been quietly working and telling myself that good work would speak for itself, Melissa had been leveraging my ideas into an empire. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom, saw Melissa's big news on Facebook. So exciting. You should congratulate her, maybe she could give you some tips for growing your design work. It's wonderful to have successful friends. Successful friends who steal your work and gaslight you about it, sure. I stared at the text for a long moment, then opened my laptop and created a new document. At the top, I typed, the complete timeline, how Melissa Chen built her career on stolen designs. 3 years of being told to take the high road had gotten me nowhere except angrier and more bitter while watching my former best friend profit from my creativity. The magazine feature was just the final insult, seeing my most personal work, inspired by my dead grandmother's flowers, being celebrated as someone else's breakthrough moment. I'd spent enough time being the bigger person. Time to be the person with receipts. The timeline document grew to 14 pages before I realized it was past midnight. I'd been so absorbed in cataloging every theft that I'd forgotten to eat dinner. My back ached from hunching over the laptop, but I couldn't stop. Each piece of evidence I added felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. I was cross-referencing dates when my phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was local. Emma? It's Jessica. From college. Her voice sounded strained. I hope it's not too late to call. Jessica. The same Jessica who'd left that congratulatory comment on Melissa's LinkedIn post about us sharing ideas in the dorm. Hey, Jess. What's up? God, this is awkward. I saw Melissa's magazine feature today, and I kept thinking about what I wrote on her post. About you two sharing ideas back in college. She paused. Emma, I need to ask you something, and please be honest. Those botanical drawings in the magazine, they look exactly like the ones you used to do in your sketchbook sophomore year. The one you carried everywhere. My heart started pounding. You remember that? Of course I remember. You drew flowers on everything. Your notebooks, your planners, even my textbook covers when I asked. You had this whole thing about your grandmother's pressed flowers, right? You showed me her Bible with all the flowers tucked inside the pages. I couldn't speak. Jessica remembered details I'd forgotten I'd shared. Emma, I looked at Melissa's portfolio after I commented, and I think I fucked up. I think I've been congratulating the wrong person for 3 years. What do you mean? Remember the logo design assignment in Professor Klein's class? Junior year? You did that geometric sunburst thing for your final project. I sat behind you for weeks watching you perfect it. Melissa's logo, the one that launched her business, it's the same design. Exactly the same. My hands were shaking. I thought I was going crazy, that I was the only one who could see the similarities. But Jessica saw them too, and she wasn't even involved in the design world. There's more, Jessica continued. I didn't want to say anything because it felt weird to get in the middle of friend drama, but last year at Sarah's birthday party, I mentioned to Melissa how cool it was that you two had such similar design styles. You know what she said? I waited. She said you'd always copied her work in college, but she didn't mind because you were finding your creative voice. She made it sound like you were the one taking inspiration from her. The audacity was breathtaking. Even when she was stealing from me, Melissa had managed to flip the narrative so cleanly that our mutual friends believed I was the copycat. Jess, can I ask you a favor? Do you still have any photos from college? Anything that might show my sketchbook or class projects? Actually, yeah. I'm kind of a digital hoarder. Let me look through my old phone photos and see what I can find. I'll text you if I dig up anything useful. After she hung up, I sat in my dark kitchen feeling something I hadn't felt in 3 years, validation. It wasn't just me. Other people could see what Melissa had done, they'd just been too polite or too uncomfortable to say anything. My laptop chimed with a new email notification. The sender made my stomach drop, Melissa Chen. The subject line read, "We need to talk." I opened it with trembling fingers. Emma. Asterisk, I heard through the grapevine that you might be upset about the Design Weekly feature. I know how it might look to someone on the outside, but I think there's been a misunderstanding about creative inspiration versus copying. We've always shared ideas, that's what friends do. I'd hate for this to become some kind of public thing that makes us both look bad, asterisk. Asterisk, can we meet for coffee this week? I'm sure we can work this out like adults, asterisk. Soxo. Mel. Asterisk P.S. I hope you know I've always considered you one of my biggest inspirations. That's what makes great creative partnerships work, asterisk. Creative partnerships. She was calling systematic theft a creative partnership. The email had been sent 23 minutes ago. Someone had already told her I was asking questions, probably the same someone who'd given her my sister's number back when this all started. But what made my blood run cold was the phrase public thing that makes us both look bad. She wasn't denying the theft. She was threatening me with mutual destruction if I exposed her. Too bad for Melissa, I'd already decided I had nothing left to lose. I stared at Melissa's email for a full 10 minutes before I started laughing. Not the amused kind of laughing, the slightly unhinged kind that happens when someone's audacity reaches levels that shouldn't be humanly possible. Creative partnerships. Biggest inspirations. Work this out like adults. I forwarded the email to myself 3 times and screenshotted it twice. If Melissa wanted to play the adults having a conversation game, she'd just handed me written evidence that she knew exactly what she'd done. My phone buzzed. Jessica had come through faster than I'd expected. Asterisk found some pics from Klein's class. Also have photos from your dorm room sophomore year with your sketchbook visible. Uploading to Google Drive now. Link coming in 5 minutes, asterisk. Asterisk also, I feel like shit for not saying something sooner. I always thought something was off but convinced myself I was imagining it, asterisk. The Google Drive link arrived with 17 photos attached. I clicked through them with growing excitement and nausea. There was my geometric sunburst logo, clearly visible in a photo Jessica had taken of our final projects displayed on the classroom wall. The metadata showed the date, April 15, 2019. Melissa's business launch featuring that exact logo? September 2021. But it was the dorm room photos that made me want to throw up. Jessica had captured several shots of movie nights and study sessions where my sketchbooks were visible on my desk. In 3 different photos, you could clearly see botanical drawings identical to the ones Melissa was now claiming as her Sedona-inspired breakthrough work. The timestamp on those photos? Fall 2018. 4 years before my wedding. 5 years before Melissa's magazine feature. I was adding Jessica's photos to my documentation folder when another email popped up. This one was from someone I didn't recognize, David Chen, Portfolio Director at Design Weekly. Ms. Morgan. Asterisk, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I got your contact information from your design portfolio website. I'm writing regarding our recent feature on Melissa Chen's botanical wedding collection, asterisk. Asterisk, we've received some concerning information suggesting potential issues with the originality of the featured work. As part of our editorial standards, we investigate any claims of plagiarism or copyright infringement thoroughly, asterisk. Asterisk, would you be available for a phone conversation tomorrow regarding the timeline and development of certain design elements featured in our November issue? We take these matters very seriously and want to ensure we have accurate information, asterisk. Please reply at your earliest convenience. Best regards. David Chen. Portfolio Director, Design Weekly. Someone had already contacted the magazine. Someone else had seen what I saw and taken action before I'd even figured out what I wanted to do. My phone rang immediately. Sarah's name on the screen. Did you contact Design Weekly? Her voice was tight with panic. Melissa just called me crying saying the magazine reached out to her asking about allegations and wanting documentation of her creative process. I didn't contact anyone, I said honestly. But someone did. Well, can you fix this? Can you call them back and tell them it was a misunderstanding? This could destroy her career, Emma. She has employees now. People depending on her. People depending on her business built on my stolen work. The irony was apparently lost on Sarah. Why would I call them back? If she has documentation of her creative process, she has nothing to worry about, right? Silence. Then, she can't document something that didn't happen the way she said it did. There it was. Sarah knew. Deep down, she'd always known. So what are you asking me to do, exactly? Lie to a magazine to protect someone who's been stealing from me for 3 years? I'm asking you to think about what really matters here. Is destroying someone's life worth proving a point? Someone's life. Not someone's career built on fraud, someone's life. But she was right about one thing. This had moved beyond my control now. The magazine was investigating with or without my involvement. The question was whether I was going to participate in exposing the truth or let Melissa craft whatever narrative she could manage. I looked at my documentation folder, 847 files and growing, thanks to Jessica's photos. I'll think about it, I told Sarah, and hung up. Then I replied to David Chen's email and suggested we talk first thing in the morning. The conversation with David Chen was scheduled for 9 a.m., but I was awake at 5:30, staring at my phone as notifications poured in. Word had spread through our design community faster than I'd expected. My Instagram DMs were flooded with messages from other designers, and they weren't what I'd anticipated. Instead of taking sides, people were sharing their own stories. Asterisk, I always wondered about her spring collection. It looked so much like the mood boards from Rachel's portfolio review last year. Asterisk. Asterisk, the typography in her Moonrise rebrand is identical to a student project I saw at SCAD in 2020. I have photos. Asterisk. Asterisk Emma, I've been following both you and Melissa for years. I screenshot some similarities months ago but didn't know if I should say anything. Asterisk. The most damning message came from someone I didn't know, a designer named Alex Martinez in Portland. Asterisk, I was the sales rep who helped you with specialty paper samples in 2022. I have records of your order and photos of your invitation designs from our portfolio feature. Melissa contacted us 3 months later asking for the exact same paper combination, said she was inspired by work she'd seen online. We can provide documentation. Asterisk. Documentation. Everyone had documentation except Melissa. At 8:47 a.m., my phone rang. Not David Chen, Melissa herself. Emma, what the fuck is happening? Her voice was raw, panicked. My inbox is full of people asking about my process and whether I collaborated with other designers. Someone sent Design Weekly a timeline comparing my work to yours with timestamps. Who did that? I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I don't know who compiled the timeline, Mel. But people have eyes. They've been noticing things. Noticing things? You mean they've been listening to you spread lies about me stealing your work? Her panic was shifting to anger. Do you have any idea what this could do to my business? I have a team, Emma. I have clients depending on me. You have clients paying premium rates for my designs. Your designs? Jesus Christ, you're actually insane. We brainstormed together in college. We shared ideas. That's not stealing, that's collaboration. Collaboration requires both people knowing they're collaborating. It also requires credit. My voice was steadier than I felt. When exactly did you plan to mention my contribution to your botanical collection? Or the Moonrise rebrand? Or any of it? Silence. Then, I don't owe you anything. You never filed copyrights. You never protected your work. That's not my fault. There it was. The mask was finally off. So you admit it's my work. I admit nothing. But even if, hypothetically, some of your college sketches influenced my professional development, that's how creative industries work. Students build on existing concepts. You're not Picasso, Emma. The casual cruelty in her voice was almost impressive. 3 years of gaslighting me, and now that she was cornered, I was just some delusional student with delusions of grandeur. Good luck with the magazine investigation, I said. I hope your documentation holds up better than your story. I hung up and immediately called David Chen. Ms. Morgan, thank you for reaching out so promptly. His voice was professional but warm. I'll be direct, we've received substantial evidence suggesting that several designs featured in our November issue may have originated from your portfolio, predating Ms. Chen's claimed creation dates by significant margins. What kind of evidence? Timestamped files, original sketches, purchase records, even social media posts from mutual acquaintances that inadvertently documented your work years before Ms. Chen's professional portfolio existed. He paused. We've also been contacted by 3 other designers who believe their work has been appropriated in similar ways. 3 other designers. Melissa's theft wasn't limited to me, it was a business model. Ms. Morgan, I need to ask directly, do you have original files that can definitively prove creation dates and authorship? I opened my documentation folder, now containing 1,203 files across 4 years of systematic evidence collection. Yes, I said. I have everything. The interview with David Chen lasted 2 hours. By the end, I'd uploaded over 300 files to Design Weekly's secure server, original Photoshop documents with full edit histories, photos of my grandmother's pressed flowers, sketches from college that predated Melissa's entire career, even the receipt from my wedding venue showing the date I presented my botanical invitation designs to 150 guests. This is remarkably thorough documentation, David said as we wrapped up. I have to ask, did you anticipate needing this level of evidence? I kept everything because she made me feel crazy. Every time I noticed similarities, I'd screenshot and save files just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. The admission felt pathetic, but it was true. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Ms. Morgan, in 15 years of magazine publishing, I've never seen such clear-cut evidence of design theft. What you provided isn't paranoia, it's a masterclass in documentation. After the call, I sat in my apartment feeling strangely empty. The validation I'd craved for 3 years was finally here, but it felt hollow. Melissa had been my best friend. She'd held my hair back when I was sick in college, helped me move apartments twice, cried with me when my grandmother died. Somewhere along the way, she decided our friendship was worth less than her career ambitions. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Marcus Webb from Melissa's team. We need to discuss terms for a private resolution before this goes public. Name your price, asterisk. Terms. Price. They wanted to buy my silence. I was screenshotting Marcus's message when Sarah called. Emma, please tell me you're not actually going through with this magazine thing. She sounded exhausted. Melissa's lawyer contacted Mom asking for our family's phone numbers. This is getting out of hand. Her lawyer contacted Mom? What the hell for? Something about gathering character witnesses and establishing a timeline of your mental state. Sarah's voice got smaller. They're saying you've been obsessed with Melissa for years. That this is all coming from jealousy over her success. My mental state. Of course they were going there. Sarah, have you looked at the evidence? The timestamps, the original files? I'm not a designer. I can't tell the difference between inspiration and copying. She sighed. Look, I believe that you believe this, okay? But maybe there's truth somewhere in the middle. Maybe you both. There's no middle ground between creating something and stealing it. My patience was gone. Either I designed those botanical illustrations in 2022 or I didn't. Either those are my grandmother's flowers or they're not. But even if she did use your ideas, was it malicious? Maybe she just... Sarah, she's claiming she created everything during a meditation retreat in Sedona. She's giving interviews about her creative process for work she knows I designed. That's not unconscious influence. That's deliberate fraud. Silence. Then, Emma, what if you're wrong? What if you destroy her career and you're wrong? What if I'm right and I do nothing? After Sarah hung up, I googled Marcus Webb. Senior partner at Kellner & Associates, specializing in intellectual property and crisis management for creative professionals. Melissa had hired serious legal firepower. My laptop chimed with an email notification. David Chin again. Ms. Morgan. Asterisk update, we've completed our preliminary investigation and will be retracting the November feature pending a full editorial review. Ms. Chen's representation has requested a 48-hour delay before we publish any correction, citing new evidence of collaboration asterisk. Asterisk, I wanted you to know that 3 additional designers have come forward with similar claims against Ms. Chen's work, spanning back to 2020. We're considering a follow-up feature on design plagiarism in the digital age asterisk. Would you be interested in participating in an on-the-record interview about your experience? 3 additional designers. A follow-up feature. This was becoming bigger than just my stolen wedding invitations. My phone rang. Marcus Webb's number. Ms. Morgan, I represent Melissa Chen. I believe we can resolve this misunderstanding without the need for public litigation or media attention. What kind of misunderstanding? My client acknowledges that certain design elements may have been unconsciously influenced by shared creative sessions during your friendship. She's prepared to offer financial compensation in exchange for a joint statement clarifying the collaborative nature of the work in question. Unconsciously influenced. Shared creative sessions. The gaslighting continued even through her lawyer. What's the offer? $50,000, plus a public statement that you and Ms. Chen co-developed certain concepts during your friendship, and that any similarities in your respective portfolios reflect this collaborative relationship. $50,000 to lie. To let her keep the career she'd built on my work and claim we were creative partners who just forgot to mention my contributions for 3 years. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. But I'd already made up my mind. Some things weren't for sale. I stared at Marcus Webb's business card for exactly 3 minutes before I did something that surprised even me. I called him back. Mr. Webb? It's Emma Morgan. I have a counterproposal for your client. I'm listening. Full public acknowledgement of my authorship for every piece she's stolen, documented proof that she'll cease using any of my designs, and she pays for a full-page correction in Design Weekly stating the actual origin of the botanical collection. Plus the $50,000. Silence. Then a laugh. Ms. Morgan, that would essentially destroy my client's career. Surely we can find a more reasonable middle ground. Your client destroyed her own career when she built it on stolen work. I'm just asking her to tell the truth. The truth is subjective in creative collaboration. The truth has timestamps, Mr. Webb. And metadata. And 17 witnesses who can testify about when my work was created versus when your client claims to have had her magical Sedona revelation. After I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in years. The relief was intoxicating, finally saying exactly what I meant instead of being diplomatic, being the bigger person, smoothing things over. My phone immediately started buzzing. First Sarah, then Mom, then numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it off and opened my laptop. The Design Weekly website had posted a brief statement, due to questions regarding attribution and originality, our November feature Rising Star, how one designer's wedding collection revolutionized modern romance aesthetics has been temporarily retracted pending investigation. The internet had already noticed. Design Twitter was exploding with speculation about what questions regarding attribution meant. Someone had created a side-by-side comparison of Melissa's botanical collection and my wedding invitation photos that Sarah had posted on Facebook in 2023. The similarities were damning even in low-resolution social media pictures. But it was the Instagram stories that made my stomach drop. Melissa had posted a series of tearful videos from her studio, talking about false allegations and jealous former friends trying to destroy women's success. She looked genuinely distraught, mascara smudged, surrounded by the botanical prints that had started this whole mess. I'm devastated that someone I once called my best friend would try to destroy everything I've worked for, she said to the camera. Yes, Emma and I shared ideas in college, that's what friends do. But to claim ownership over my life's work because we brainstormed together years ago? That's not friendship. That's extortion. Extortion. She was calling my demand for credit extortion. The comments were split between supporters saying stay strong babe, and others asking pointed questions about timestamps and documentation. But what made my blood pressure spike was seeing my full name attached to accusations of jealousy and extortion broadcast to her 47,000 followers. I was screenshotting her stories when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw 2 people I didn't recognize, a woman with a camera and a man with a notebook. Press. Melissa's crisis management strategy had apparently included getting her side of the story out first. I didn't answer the door, but I did call David Chin. They're spinning this as a jealous friend making false accusations, I told him. Her lawyer offered $50,000 to say we were secret collaborators. 50,000? David's voice sharpened. Ms. Morgan, that's significantly more than we typically see in intellectual property settlements of this scale. That offer suggests their legal team believes your evidence is extremely strong. Strong enough to win? Strong enough that they're desperate to keep this out of court and away from further media attention. He paused. There's something else. We've been contacted by Creative Quarterly. They want to do their own investigation into Ms. Chen's award-winning work from 2022. Apparently, several readers have reached out with concerns about similarities to other designers' portfolios. Creative Quarterly. The publication that had launched Melissa's reputation as an innovative designer. If they started pulling that thread, her entire professional foundation would unravel. How far back are we talking? Potentially to the beginning of her career. Ms. Morgan, I think you need to understand, you may have accidentally exposed something much larger than personal theft between friends. This could be systematic fraud spanning years. After David hung up, I sat in my kitchen listening to the reporters ring my doorbell intermittently while I processed what he'd said. I thought I was fighting for credit for my wedding invitations. Instead, I might have stumbled into exposing an entire career built on stolen work. My laptop chimed with a new email. Jessica again, I've been digging through old photos all night. Found something big. Call me ASAP. I called her back immediately. I found photos from Professor Klein's senior portfolio reviews, she said without preamble. Spring 2020. There are clear shots of at least 6 projects that Melissa has since claimed as original work. Emma, she didn't just steal from you. She stole from half our graduating class. The photos Jessica sent made my hands shake as I scrolled through them. Clear shots of our senior portfolio wall, 24 students' final projects displayed for critique. Professor Klein had made us present in alphabetical order, so everything was organized, labeled, dated. And there, in crystalline detail, was the smoking gun I hadn't even known existed. Project number 7, Lunar Cycle Brand Identity, by Rachel Martinez. The exact moon phase illustrations that had become Melissa's signature Moonrise coffee rebrand. Project number 12, Botanical Typography Study, by David Kim. The same hand-lettered fonts Melissa claimed as her original calligraphy style. Project number 18, Geometric Harmony Logo Series, my own work, the sunburst design that launched her business 2 years later. But it was project number 3 that made my stomach drop, Ethereal Wedding Suite by Amanda Foster. A complete botanical wedding invitation collection in sage green and blush, featuring pressed flower illustrations nearly identical to both my grandmother's flowers and Melissa's Sedona-inspired breakthrough designs. Melissa hadn't just stolen from me. She'd been systematically harvesting our entire graduating class for source material. Jesus Christ, I whispered, zooming in on Amanda's project label. She stole from Amanda too. It gets worse, Jessica said. I called Amanda last night. She's been running a small design business in Austin, barely scraping by. She saw Melissa's magazine feature and had a complete breakdown because she recognized her own work. But she convinced herself it was just coincidence because who would steal from a nobody like her? A nobody. Amanda had been one of the most talented designers in our program, but she'd struggled with confidence, always comparing herself to flashier personalities like Melissa. Perfect target for theft because she'd never believe her work was worth stealing. Does Amanda have her original files? Every single one, plus process documentation Klein required for our final portfolios. Timestamp sketches, inspiration boards, the works. Jessica paused. I think I need to make some more phone calls. If Melissa did this to you and Amanda, who else? After Jessica hung up, I sat staring at the portfolio photos until my laptop screen went dark. 22 other designers in our graduating class. How many of them had seen their abandoned college projects resurface as Melissa Chen's professional breakthrough moments? My doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I saw a different woman, mid-30s, professional but approachable, holding what looked like a business card instead of a camera. Ms. Morgan? I'm Katie Sullivan from the Portland Design Alliance. I was hoping we could talk. I opened the door to the chain. If you're here to defend Melissa. I'm here because 3 of our members contacted us overnight claiming their work appears in Ms. Chen's portfolio without attribution. Katie's voice was steady, matter of fact. We'd like to offer you legal support. Legal support. From the Portland Design Alliance, the organization Melissa had keynote just 6 months ago, talking about authentic creative voice and building your signature style. I let Katie in. How many designers are we talking about? I asked as she settled into my kitchen chair. So far? 8 confirmed cases spanning 2019 to 2023. We expect more as word spreads. She opened her tablet and showed me a document titled Chen Investigation, Preliminary Findings. Ms. Morgan, we believe you've uncovered the most systematic case of design plagiarism our organization has ever seen. 8 designers. 8 people whose work had been stolen and repackaged as Melissa's innovative vision. What's the legal exposure here? Potentially massive. We're talking about copyright infringement across multiple works, fraudulent business practices, even trademark issues if she's filed protections for stolen designs. Katie leaned forward. But here's what I really came to tell you. Marcus Webb called our legal department this morning. They're offering a settlement to make this entire investigation disappear. 7 figures. 7 figures. $1 million territory. They offered me $50,000 yesterday. Katie smiled grimly. Yesterday they thought this was about one disgruntled friend. Today they know it's about potential criminal fraud charges and a class action lawsuit that could bankrupt their client. My phone, still turned off from the reporters, suddenly felt very heavy in my pocket. I turned my phone back on to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The most recent was from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk, this is Amanda Foster. Jessica gave me your number. We need to talk. Now. Asterisk. I called Amanda back while Katie Sullivan reviewed documents at my kitchen table. Amanda picked up on the first ring. Emma, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Her voice was shaky, rapid fire. I've been up all night going through my old files. She didn't just take my botanical wedding suite, she took my color theory project, my minimalist logo series, even my fucking senior thesis on sustainable design aesthetics. How much of your work? Everything. Every major project I did junior and senior year shows up in her portfolio somewhere between 2021 and 2023. Amanda's voice cracked. I thought I was going crazy. I kept seeing my ideas everywhere but telling myself it was just trends, you know? That maybe I wasn't as original as I thought. Katie looked up from her tablet. Ms. Foster? This is Katie Sullivan from the Portland Design Alliance. You're on speaker. Can you quantify how much of your original work appears in Ms. Chen's commercial portfolio? At least 12 major design concepts, plus dozens of smaller elements like color palettes and typography treatments. Amanda's voice got steadier. I have everything documented because Klein made us keep process journals. Creation dates, inspiration sources, revision history, it's all timestamped. I watched Katie type notes as Amanda spoke. The legal implications were becoming clearer by the minute. This wasn't just artistic inspiration or unconscious influence, this was systematic intellectual property theft spanning multiple years and victims. Amanda, did you ever send Melissa your work directly? Email files or anything? No, never. We weren't even that close in school. But she was always hanging around during portfolio reviews, taking photos for inspiration. I thought she was just being supportive of other students' work. Amanda laughed bitterly. Turns out she was shopping. Katie's tablet chimed with an email. She read it quickly, then looked up at me. Ms. Morgan, we just received another settlement offer. Marcus Webb is now proposing $1.2 million split among all affected designers, plus a public statement about collaborative inspiration in educational settings. $1.2 million to let Melissa keep her stolen empire and frame systematic theft as educational collaboration. How many affected designers are we up to now? 11 confirmed, with 5 more potential cases under review. Katie pulled up another document. Our legal team ran a preliminary analysis of Ms. Chen's complete portfolio against college design project databases. The overlap is extensive. My doorbell rang again. This time it was my neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez with a concerned expression and a plate of cookies. Mija, there are news vans outside. Are you okay? Should I call the police? News vans. Plural. What had started as a personal dispute about wedding invitations was becoming a media circus. Through Mrs. Rodriguez's cookies and my kitchen window, I could see 3 different television crews setting up on my street. One of them had a satellite dish. Katie, how did this get so big so fast? Design plagiarism is a hot topic right now, especially with AI and digital theft concerns. Plus, Ms. Chen has been very public about her success story, rising designer, magazine features, conference speaking. When someone that visible gets exposed for fraud, it makes news. She paused. Also, her Instagram stories about jealous friends and extortion claims have gone viral. Hashtag Melissa Chen is trending on Twitter. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up Twitter. Hashtag Melissa Chen was indeed trending, with over 47,000 tweets in the last 12 hours. The conversation was split between supporters defending her against bitter jealous attacks and people posting side-by-side comparisons of her work with increasingly obvious similarities to other designers. But it was the quote tweets that made my stomach churn. Screenshot after screenshot of Melissa's tearful Instagram videos, with comments like "This is why women can't support each other" and "False accusations destroy careers" and "Emma Morgan is obviously mentally unstable." My full name attached to accusations of instability and jealousy, spreading across the internet faster than I could process. She's winning the narrative war, I said, showing Katie the Twitter feed. Katie glanced at the screen and smiled grimly. For now. But wait until tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? Creative Quarterly publishes their investigation. Turns out they've been sitting on plagiarism concerns about her award-winning work for months, waiting for enough evidence to move forward. Katie closed her tablet. Ms. Morgan, you didn't just expose Melissa Chen's theft. You gave 11 other designers their voices back. Tomorrow, the world finds out exactly how deep this goes. I was reading Creative Quarterly's explosive article over my morning coffee when my phone started ringing nonstop. The headline was brutal: The Melissa Chen Files, How One Designer Built Her Empire on Stolen Dreams. They'd done their homework. 47 pages of evidence, including quotes from 15 different designers whose work had been appropriated. The magazine had even hired a forensic digital analyst who confirmed that Melissa's original files were often created months or years after similar designs had been publicly shared by other artists. But the detail that made my hands shake was a quote from Professor Klein himself. Ms. Chen was known for photographing other students' work during critiques. At the time, we interpreted this as enthusiasm for learning from peers. In retrospect, the pattern is deeply concerning. My doorbell rang at 7:43 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw Marcus Webb himself, looking significantly less composed than he'd sounded on the phone. Ms. Morgan, we need to discuss an immediate resolution. This situation has escalated beyond what anyone anticipated. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. What's the offer now? $2 million. Split among all claimants. Ms. Chen will issue a statement acknowledging collaborative influences and retire from commercial design work. His voice was strained. This ends today, or it ends very badly for everyone involved. Including your client? My client is facing potential criminal charges for copyright fraud across 4 states. Her business assets have been frozen pending investigation. 3 major clients terminated contracts overnight. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. Ms. Morgan, Melissa Chen's career is over regardless. The question is whether we can salvage anything from this mess or let it burn completely. $2 million. For work they'd stolen from us over years of systematic theft. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Katie Sullivan. Emma, don't sign anything. Webb's firm just received notice that the FBI's Intellectual Property Crimes Unit is opening a formal investigation. This isn't just civil litigation anymore, it's potential federal fraud charges. The FBI. Federal fraud charges. What had started with me recognizing my grandmother's flowers in a magazine was now a criminal investigation. Marcus Webb's face had gone pale. Miss Sullivan, this is Marcus Webb representing. I know who you are, Mr. Webb. And I know your client just attempted to flee to her family's vacation home in Costa Rica. TSA flagged her passport this morning. She tried to run. Melissa had actually tried to flee the country rather than face what she'd done. Mr. Webb, Katie continued, your settlement offers are meaningless now. The federal government doesn't negotiate with fraud suspects. After Webb left, looking like a man whose career was imploding alongside his clients, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by the wreckage of 3 years of being told to be the bigger person. My laptop showed 247 new Instagram followers in the past hour. The comments on my old posts were a mix of support and accusations, but the direct messages were what surprised me. Designer after designer sharing stories of their own work being stolen by people they trusted, thanking me for finally speaking up. One message stood out: Emma, this is Sarah Chen, no relation to Melissa. I'm a junior designer in Seattle. Seeing you fight back gave me the courage to report my boss for stealing my work. Thank you for showing us we don't have to stay silent. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Saw the news. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. Coming over with dinner and wine. We have a lot to talk about. Outside my window, the news vans had doubled. But for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't afraid of what people might think about me not being the bigger person. Sometimes the bigger person was the one who refused to let thieves keep what they'd stolen. 3 days later, I was sitting in a federal building downtown, giving my statement to Agent Rebecca Torres when she dropped a bombshell that made everything I thought I knew about Melissa's operation seem small. Ms. Morgan, we've identified at least 43 additional victims across 7 states, Agent Torres said, sliding a thick folder across the conference table. Your case was just the tip of the iceberg. I opened the folder to find printouts of social media posts, college portfolios, and design competition entries dating back to 2017. All of them showed work that had later appeared in Melissa's portfolio or her clients' branding packages. How is that even possible? She was just one person. Ms. Chen had help. We've traced payments to 5 different individuals who were essentially design scouts, people who attended portfolio reviews, design conferences, and college exhibitions specifically to photograph promising work. Agent Torres pointed to a bank statement. She paid them $500 per concept acquisition, as she called it in her encrypted messages. Concept acquisition. She'd turned art theft into a business model with employees and profit margins. We found her operations center yesterday when we executed the search warrant on her studio. Ms. Morgan, she had physical files on over 200 designers. Photos, social media screenshots, even personality profiles noting who was unlikely to pursue legal action due to competence issues or financial constraints. My stomach turned. She profiled her victims? Extensively. Your file was labeled high value, low risk with notes about your tendency to avoid confrontation and prioritize relationships over recognition. Agent Torres flipped through pages covered in Melissa's handwriting. She'd been monitoring your work since college graduation, waiting for the right pieces to steal. High value, low risk. She'd studied me like a predator studies prey, cataloging my weaknesses to ensure I'd never fight back. There's more. We found correspondence with overseas manufacturers who were producing knockoff versions of stolen designs for international sale. Ms. Chen wasn't just stealing for her own portfolio, she was running a design piracy syndicate. Agent Torres showed me photos from the studio raid. Wall-to-wall filing cabinets labeled by designer name, each containing stolen work organized by commercial value. My file was 3 inches thick, spanning work from college through last month's Instagram posts. The financial scope is staggering. We estimate she generated over $2.8 million in revenue from stolen intellectual property across 6 years. She pointed to a spreadsheet. Your botanical wedding collection alone netted her $240,000 in client contracts. $240,000. From my grandmother's pressed flowers that I'd sketched while grieving. My phone buzzed with a text from Katie Sullivan. Emma, turn on Channel 7 News. Now. I excused myself and pulled up the live stream on my phone. The anchor was standing outside Melissa's downtown studio while FBI agents loaded boxes into white vans. What authorities are calling the largest design fraud operation in Pacific Northwest history. Chen, who just days ago was featured as a rising star in Design Weekly magazine, allegedly operated a sophisticated intellectual property theft ring targeting emerging designers across multiple states. The camera cut to an interview with Amanda Foster, who looked composed despite everything she'd been through. I want other designers to know they're not crazy if they recognize their work in someone else's portfolio, Amanda was saying. For years, I thought I was being paranoid or egotistical. But your work matters. Your creativity has value. And you deserve credit for what you create. When I returned to the conference room, Agent Torres was reviewing what looked like financial records. Ms. Morgan, there's one more thing you should know. We found evidence that Ms. Chen was planning to expand her operation internationally. She'd already established contacts with design schools in London, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. If you hadn't spoken up when you did, this could have become a global network. Global. My decision to finally stop being the bigger person had prevented an international art theft syndicate. What happens now? Ms. Chen is facing federal charges including wire fraud, copyright infringement, and racketeering. Her co-conspirators are being arrested as we speak. Agent Torres closed the folder. As for the victims, we're working with the Portland Design Alliance to establish a restitution fund and help people reclaim their stolen work. I walked out of the federal building feeling surreal. The reporters waiting outside shouted questions, but I kept walking until I reached my car. My phone had dozens of missed calls and messages, but only one made me smile, a text from Jessica that simply said, proud of you for not being the bigger person. Sometimes the bigger person is actually just a doormat. She was right. I'd spent 3 years being accommodating, diplomatic, and forgiving while Melissa built an empire on stolen dreams. The bigger person would have let her keep it. But I wasn't the bigger person anymore. I was just someone who'd finally decided her work was worth fighting for. 2 weeks after Melissa's arrest, I was trying to return to some semblance of normal life when Katie Sullivan called with news that made my blood run cold. Emma, we have a problem. Marcus Webb contacted our legal team this morning. Melissa is claiming she has evidence that you stole work from her first. I nearly dropped my coffee mug, again. What kind of evidence? Screenshots of design files allegedly created on her computer before your timestamps. Email drafts supposedly proving she shared ideas with you that you later claimed as original work. Katie's voice was tense. It's obviously fabricated, but she's had 3 weeks in custody to craft a counter-narrative. 3 weeks. More than enough time for someone with Melissa's planning abilities to construct a defense strategy that flipped the entire script. How is that even possible? The FBI has her computers. She's claiming these are from a backup drive that her assistant, one of the scouts we arrested, kept as insurance. The files show creation dates that predate your work by several months. My stomach dropped. Can they tell the files have been backdated? Digital forensics can usually detect tampering, but it takes time. And Emma. Katie paused. There's something else. 3 of the other victims are now saying they might have been unconsciously influenced by Melissa's work after all. They're backing out of the restitution proceedings. 3 victims. Backing out. After everything we'd uncovered. Why would they do that? Because Webb's team contacted them directly. Offered individual settlements in exchange for statements supporting Melissa's collaborative influence defense. Katie's voice got harder. They're trying to isolate you as the primary accuser while portraying everyone else as willing collaborators. I pulled up my email to find 17 messages from journalists asking for comment on new developments in the Chen case and allegations of evidence fabrication by accusers. The narrative was shifting faster than I could process. The worst email was from David Chen at Design Weekly. Ms. Morgan, we've received documentation suggesting potential timeline discrepancies in the evidence you provided. We need to discuss this immediately to avoid publishing corrections that could expose us to litigation. Corrections. They were considering retracting their retraction. My doorbell rang, and through the peephole I saw Marcus Webb again, this time accompanied by a woman I didn't recognize, sharp suit, briefcase, the kind of presence that screamed expensive legal representation. I opened the door to the chain. I'm not discussing anything without my lawyer present. Ms. Morgan, this is Assistant District Attorney Linda Harrison. We're not here in an adversarial capacity, Webb said, his confidence notably restored. We're here to offer you an opportunity to avoid potential perjury charges. Perjury charges. They were threatening to prosecute me for lying to federal investigators. What perjury charges? ADA Harrison stepped forward. If the evidence you provided to the FBI was falsified or backdated to support false claims against Ms. Chen, that constitutes federal perjury. However, if you were simply mistaken about the timeline of collaborative work, we can resolve this as a civil misunderstanding. Mistaken. Collaborative work. The gaslighting had evolved into legal threats. I didn't falsify anything. Then you won't mind submitting to additional forensic analysis of your devices and files, Harrison said smoothly. Full disclosure of your digital footprint, social media accounts, and communication history with Ms. Chen. Standard procedure for federal fraud investigations. I closed the door and immediately called Katie Sullivan, but my call went straight to voicemail. I tried Agent Torres next, also voicemail. Everyone who'd been supporting my case was suddenly unreachable. My laptop chimed with a new email. The sender made my hands shake. Melissa Chen, sent from what looked like a legal email account. Emma. Asterisk, I know you probably hate me right now, but I need you to understand something. I never meant for this to go so far. When I used your ideas, I genuinely thought we were collaborating. You always shared everything so freely. I thought that's what friends did. Asterisk. Asterisk, but now the FBI is involved and people are talking about criminal charges. Emma, they're saying I could face 15 years in prison. 15 years. For what started as friends sharing creative inspiration. Asterisk. Asterisk, I found my old backup drive, and it has files that prove we were working on these concepts together. I know how it looks now, but back then, the lines were blurred. We brainstormed everything together. Your memory of who created what first might not be as clear as you think. Asterisk. Asterisk, please, Emma. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to remember honestly. Were we really that separate in our creative process? Or did we inspire each other so much that the ideas became shared property? Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm willing to admit my part in not giving you enough credit. But destroying my life won't restore yours. Asterisk. Mel. The email was a masterpiece of manipulation. Just enough vulnerability to seem genuine, just enough doubt to make me question my own memory, and just enough legal threat to scare me into compliance. My phone rang. Sarah's name on the screen. Emma, I just got off the phone with Marcus Webb's office. They said you might be facing charges for false reporting? Her voice was thick with worry. They're asking family members to provide character statements about your mental state over the past few years. My mental state. Again. Sarah, you know I didn't make this up. I know, but Emma, what if your memory isn't as clear as you think? What if some of this really was collaborative and you just forgot because you were so angry? She sounded exhausted. Maybe it's time to consider that settlement. $2 million is life-changing money. Life-changing money in exchange for admitting I'd been wrong about everything. That my 3 years of careful documentation was just the paranoid fantasy of an unstable woman who couldn't handle her friend's success. I hung up and stared at my documentation folder, 1,847 files of evidence that I thought was bulletproof. But if Melissa could backdate files convincingly enough to fool forensic analysis, and if she could get other victims to recant their stories, then maybe I really was about to become the crazy ex-friend who destroyed an innocent woman's career. My laptop chimed again. Another email, this time from Amanda Foster. Emma, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. My lawyer says I could be charged as an accessory if I can't prove my claims. I have to think about my family. One by one, Melissa was picking off every piece of evidence, every witness, every supporter. And for the first time since this began, I wondered if she was going to win. I was sitting in my car outside the federal building, hands shaking as I stared at Amanda's email, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Emma? This is Dr. Patricia Klein. Your former professor. Professor Klein. I hadn't heard her voice in 4 years, but it was unmistakable, warm, authoritative, with that slight accent I'd never been able to place. Professor Klein? How did you get my number? The FBI contacted me yesterday about my portfolio review photographs. Emma, I need to tell you something that might change everything. Her voice was urgent in a way I'd never heard during college. I've been following this case in the news, and there's evidence that hasn't come to light yet. My heart started pounding. What kind of evidence? Security footage from our senior portfolio reviews. The university keeps digital archives of all major academic events for 7 years. I requested access yesterday and found something extraordinary. She paused. Emma, I have video proof of Melissa systematically photographing every student's work during the reviews. Not casual photos, methodical documentation. She even brought a telephoto lens. Video proof. Actual recorded evidence of Melissa's theft operation. But Professor, that was 4 years ago. Why would that matter now? Because the timestamps on her backup drive claim she created several designs during our portfolio review weeks, the exact same weeks the video shows her photographing those designs from other students' presentations. Klein's voice got harder. She didn't just steal your work, Emma. She fabricated evidence to make it look like she created everything first. I pulled over to the curb, my hands shaking too badly to drive. Does the FBI know about this? I called Agent Torres this morning. She's reviewing the footage now, but Emma, there's something else. I kept detailed records of every student's submission dates and project timelines. Melissa's current claims don't just contradict your evidence, they contradict university records that predate any possible collaboration between you two. University records. Official documentation that couldn't be backdated or manipulated. Professor, other victims are recanting their stories. They're saying it might have been collaborative after all. Klein made a sound that might have been discussed. I received calls from Marcus Webb's office asking about the collaborative culture of my classroom and whether students regularly shared intellectual property. They're trying to retroactively frame systematic theft as educational cooperation. My phone buzzed with a text from Katie Sullivan, Emma, urgent. New evidence came to light. Don't sign anything or speak to anyone until we talk. FBI wants another meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Professor Klein, did Agent Torres say what she found in the footage? She couldn't give specifics, but she did say this, Professor, this video evidence just turned a potential perjury case into an obstruction of justice case. Emma, Melissa didn't just steal from you, she falsified evidence to frame you for the crime she committed. After Klein hung up, I sat in my car watching normal people walk by living their normal lives while my entire world shifted again. Melissa's backup drive wasn't just conveniently timed evidence, it was manufactured evidence designed to destroy me if her theft was ever exposed. The scope of her planning was breathtaking. She hadn't just stolen our work, she prepared for the possibility of getting caught by creating false evidence that would make her victims look like liars and criminals. My phone rang. Agent Torres. Ms. Morgan, we need to talk. Our digital forensics team just finished analyzing the Chin backup drive. Every single file was created last month using software that didn't exist when the files were supposedly made. Her voice was grim. But more importantly, we found the original theft operation files on that same drive. Ms. Morgan, she documented everything. Names, targets, even profit projections. What do you mean documented everything? I mean she kept spreadsheets tracking which designs she stole from whom, how much money each theft generated, and detailed psychological profiles of victims to predict who would fight back. Torres paused. Emma, she had a file on you titled Long-Term Asset Management. She'd been planning to use your work for years. Long-term asset management. I wasn't a friend whose trust she'd betrayed, I was inventory in a criminal enterprise. Agent Torres, what about the other victims who recanted? Funny thing about that. We just arrested Marcus Webb for witness tampering. Turns out those individual settlements came with very specific scripts about what the victims were supposed to say. Her voice got satisfaction sharp. Ms. Morgan, this case just became a lot bigger than art theft. We're looking at racketeering, fraud, and now obstruction of justice charges. When I finally drove home, there were no news vans on my street for the first time in weeks. But there was something better, a handwritten note taped to my door from Mrs. Rodriguez. Mija, I made extra tamales. Come over when you're ready. I've been saving the good tequila for when you won. 3 months later, I was standing in the lobby of the Portland Design Alliance building, smoothing down my black blazer and trying not to think about the fact that this was the same outfit I'd worn to my grandmother's funeral, the day I'd first sketched those botanical illustrations that started everything. The conference room was packed. 47 designers who'd been victims of Melissa's operation, plus lawyers, FBI agents, and more reporters than I'd ever seen in one place. At the front of the room, a projector displayed the final settlement numbers, $4.2 million in restitution, split proportionally based on the commercial value of stolen work. My portion was $847,000. Katie Sullivan stood at the podium, looking every inch the fierce advocate who'd turned my desperate phone call into federal racketeering charges. Today's settlement represents more than financial compensation, she said to the crowd. It represents a fundamental shift in how we protect creative intellectual property in the digital age. I glanced at my phone. The Design Weekly article about the case had just published, The Chin Conspiracy, How One Woman's Refusal to Be the Bigger Person Exposed a Multi-million-dollar Art Theft Syndicate. The subtitle made me smile. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is fight back. Agent Torres stepped to the microphone. Melissa Chen was sentenced yesterday to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $6.7 million in damages. Her co-conspirators received sentences ranging from 2 to 5 years. This investigation has fundamentally changed how federal prosecutors approach intellectual property crimes. 8 years. After everything she'd stolen, everything she'd destroyed, 8 years felt both too much and not enough. But it was the last announcement that made my throat tight with emotion. The victims in this case have established the Chin Survivors Foundation, Katie continued, providing legal aid and documentation services for artists facing intellectual property theft. The foundation's first initiative will be developing forensic tools to help creators protect and prove ownership of their work. Amanda Foster stood up in the back of the room, no longer the shaky voice I'd first heard on the phone. We're also launching mentorship programs to help emerging designers understand their rights and value their work appropriately. No one should ever feel too small or insignificant to fight for what they've created. The crowd erupted in applause. I found myself crying, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that my refusal to stay silent had protected hundreds of future artists from what we'd experienced. After the press conference, I walked outside to find Sarah waiting by her car, holding a bouquet of pressed flowers, the same varieties from Grandma Rose's Bible. I owe you an apology, she said without preamble. A big one. I spent 3 years asking you to be the bigger person instead of asking why someone was making you feel small. Sarah. No, let me finish. Being the bigger person is supposed to mean taking the moral high ground, not enabling people who hurt you. You weren't being petty or vindictive. You were being brave. She handed me the flowers. Grandma Rose would be proud that her flowers helped expose the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Morgan, this is Rachel Martinez from college. I saw the news and wanted you to know, I just got my first major client contract for my own design work. Thank you for giving all of us permission to value ourselves. That evening, I sat in my apartment, the same cramped studio where I created those first botanical sketches, working on a new project. The Chin Survivors Foundation logo, featuring pressed flowers that looked remarkably like the ones my grandmother had saved in her Bible decades ago. My laptop showed 43 new client inquiries in the past week. The publicity from the case had launched my career in ways I'd never imagined. But more than that, I'd learned something fundamental about the difference between being the bigger person and being a doormat. The bigger person doesn't let thieves keep what they've stolen just to avoid conflict. The bigger person fights back when it matters, even when it's uncomfortable, even when everyone tells you to let it go. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to be bigger than the space you deserve to occupy.